been screaming at me with their fingers to do NHL playoff recaps. And I was falling behind because of all the Marley stuff, and I'm like, no, I'm gonna do the recaps now. I was like, there are 6 series that are already done, so whatever, I'll do 6 videos today. And then someone said, Steve, no, you'll die. And I said, okay, well, how about I just recap the Eastern Conference then? And they said, that makes much more sense, yes. So here it is, Eastern Conference recap. Let us start with the Red Wings falling in 5 games to the Tampa Bay Lightning. There weren't any sweeps in the first round, but this was probably the closest one to it. Heading into the playoffs, I was talking about teams that scare me and don't scare me. I was particularly wrong on one team, and we'll get to them. But Detroit, I thought, had a chance of taking out the Lightning. And Detroit was vicious, and they played so hard, and they were nasty, and they just were totally outclassed. They just couldn't solve Ben Bishop. They scored 2 goals on him in each of the first 4 games. That's good enough to get you 1 win, but you're not going to win a series like that. And fittingly, they get shut out in Game 5. And you know what? Detroit was usually my second team growing up. Chris Draper visited my grade 2 classroom because we actually had the same grade 2 teacher, but I was kind of cheering against him in this one. Mainly because of Justin Abdelkader. Playing hard is good. Playing tough is good. Even playing nasty is good. He's dirty. Just freaking wailing. Just filling Michael Blunden while he's down. And seeing people go, yeah, how's your face? And then when Brian Boyle had something to say about it, knock knock, who's there? No one. But Steve, he had a busted hand. But he taped his hand. You can't punch him with that. That's against the rules. You know what else is against the rules? Punching someone repeatedly in the head. And if you do it on the ground, it's against your goofy code too. And a lot of people were getting on Boyle for doing the chicken thing. Abdelkader better thank his lucky stars that is the nastiest thing that happened to him there. He better wake up in the morning and go, thank goodness that was Brian Boyle, because what if it was someone like me? And now we head into the offseason with this big Pavel Datsyuk mess. And you know what? Detroit's still a fine team. They'll probably still find a way to wiggle out of this one. They've made the playoffs 25 straight years. Whenever you bet against them, you discover that it's a bad idea to bet against the Detroit Red Wings. But this has a bit of a Rome feel. It wasn't built in a day, and it didn't fall that way either. It's more of a crumble. But you know what? Full marks to Ben Bishop, but full marks to the Tampa Bay Lightning as a team. They did that all without Steven Stamkos. I thought Victor Hedman really stepped up. Now, freshest in your hearts and minds, the New York Islanders beating the Florida Panthers in 6 games. Shout out to Brooklyn, New York, and Sunrise, Florida for not being on the West Coast. Whenever you see any of the Californian teams, you can usually bank on them going to triple overtime, and it makes me sleepy. You know what? I kind of disrespected this series coming into the playoffs. I was looking at both teams and going, I'm not afraid of either of you. Specifically, I said I'm not afraid of the New York Islanders. And you know what? Even after the series, they still might not be, but I'm afraid of John Tavares. Some players are good, and I think there's plenty of those. Some players are great, and you know what? There's some of those. There are very few players in the NHL with beast mode. John Tavares has this Crosby, Malkin, Ovechkin-like ability to just take over games. And he did that a few times in this one, and I think that was the difference. Even with Luongo playing as well as he did, which brings me to someone else who deserves credit, Thomas Greiss. This was a pretty even series coming into the playoffs, I think, and I think a lot of people were like, I don't know who to pick, I don't know who to pick. Oh, the Islanders have Greiss in net? I'm picking the Panthers. And for years, this guy has been fighting for his due. Let's give it to him. He was fantastic. The one thing I will say, and this happens every playoff, so there's no excuse, but boy, it sucks that the Panthers didn't have Trocheck for the whole series. That guy can fly. And is this the last we will see Jaromir? I'm kidding. No, that guy's going to play like another decade. Now, the Penguins defeating the New York Rangers in 5. Hey, remember like a couple minutes ago when I said the Lightning beating the Red Wings was the closest thing we had to a sweep in these playoffs? I forgot about this one. The Penguins killed the Rangers, and it only got worse as the series progressed. It wasn't a feeling out period. It wasn't a stumble out of the gate. It was the Pittsburgh Penguins completely and utterly outclassing the New York Rangers. And yes, he got pulled a couple times. Yes, he wasn't very good, but you better watch your mouth bad-mouthing Henrik Lundqvist after that one. He's probably fighting all kinds of back injuries we don't know about because he's been carrying the Rangers for a decade. The Penguins have been fighting injuries, especially in net. Holy smoke, Zatkoff holding the fort for a little while there, but they just showed their depth. It didn't matter who was hurt. Crosby was sick. And how about Phil Kessel? Didn't I tell you? Playoff Phil Kessel is a very unfortunate Kessel to play against. How's that for hot dogging it? And last but not least, the Washington Capitals beat the Philadelphia Flyers in 6 games. Yay! Except not yay. Bad Capitals! Holy smokes, you had them! You had them! You win game 1, good for you. You win game 2 at home, good for you. Now you're 2-0 heading on the road, and you kill the Flyers on home ice. They're embarrassed. Their fans are throwing things onto the ice. You got players like Wayne Simmons going, stop! and you got them. You got them. You got one more win. And you can be like, well, they ran into a hot goaltender in Michael Neuwirth in Game 4. The game-winning goal was scored by Andrew McDonald. And then Game 5, Steve, Game 5, you're really going to yell at the Capitals for outshooting the Flyers 44-11. If they play that game 10 times, they'll win 9. Yeah, well, this was the one. You go ahead and give full marks to the Flyers if you want. You go ahead and you give full marks to Neuwirth. The Capitals have got to learn to close stuff out. Steve, why are you yelling? Because I am a Leafs fan and I hate watching good teams waste opportunities, especially year after year after year. It's okay, just imagine what I'll say about the Blues if they don't win tonight. Now maybe the Capitals needed to feel a little human in round 1. Maybe they needed that because they're about to head into a war against Pittsburgh. And no disrespect to the Rangers, but I'm sure Pittsburgh is glad they played the Rangers instead of the Flyers. In round 2, the Caps have to unleash the fury. They have to unleash the Hulk Beast. Where does he keep getting these toys? Isn't he a grown-up? Never mind. And if I'm gonna rip on Abdelkader for a full minute, Flyers, wow, way to live up to your name. The Belmar hit wasn't good. It deserved a suspension. Got one. You seem to feel bad about it. Whatever. You can chalk that up to a semi-accident. Intentionally cross-checking one of the Capitals' best players in the knee? What decade is this? I was yelling about this on the podcast. Okay, I get that, like Braden Shen, for example, his cross-check on Evgeny Kuznetsov, I get that Kuznetsov walked away from that fine. It's about the intent. He meant to take the guy out. But don't worry, as usual, we're gonna have to learn the hard way and wait till a player gets severely injured to actually do anything. But now we're down to the final 8, the final 4 in the East. Who do you have going to the Eastern Conference Final? So that is it for this one. Thank you very much for watching. Click like if you like this video. Click subscribe if you really liked it. Tell all your friends, and I mean, if your team lost, don't worry about it. You can just chill with me. Misery does love company after all. I'm broken inside.